quality criteria in simultaneous interpreting. Quality has always been an issue and the central topic of interpreting studies since interpreting became an officially recognized profession in 1950, as many haven't been able to define the concept in its entirety. This has resulted in that many acknowledge this elusive problem despite the fact that there is little to no consensus on how to define quality. But why it is so difficult to define it? Well, there are three main reasons. 1. There are too many variables involved in how someone perceives quality. 2. It changes depending on the context. And 3. It changes depending on for whom, how, and under which circumstances it is researched. However, everything changed when in 1986, Julio and Buehler made a survey about the importance that some people give to certain evaluation criteria when it comes to interpreting. This study consisted of asking various interpreters about what quality criteria they considered as the most important when accepting new members into an association. In order to do this, Buehler surveyed 47 members of the AIIC and 7 members of the CACL. During 2 seminars, she asked the participants about the level of importance they attributed to 16 linguistic and extra-linguistic quality criteria when evaluating new applicants for their respective associations. Once the survey ended, the results indicated that content-related criteria such as sense consistency and logical cohesion were considered the most important, and that delivery-related criteria such as voice quality or good grammar were the least important. So it's fair to say that both the client and the interpreter prioritize content over delivery. This survey set the beginnings of studies regarding quality criteria in the interpreting field, and it was so groundbreaking that to this day, Buehler's research is referenced in a number of other studies. As time went on, several surveys were made. Unfortunately, these were more focused on the opinion of those who require interpreting services, instead of focusing on real interpreters. This became a problem since for years, the interpreter's opinion was completely ignored in order to prioritize the clients, because at the end of the day, they are the ones responsible of evaluating the interpreter's work. However, an interpreter's opinion is just as important, if not more, as the client's opinion, because they can determine how good is another interpreter and which criteria that person is going to be evaluated with in case that he or she applies for an association. However, it wasn't until 2004 that Chiara and Ocella switched the focus back to the interpreters in the very first online questionnaire related to interpreting studies. They adopted 9 of Buehler's criteria and sent an email containing the survey to 1,000 interpreters of various unspecified organizations. What is interesting about this research is that the participants were not asked to rate or evaluate the criteria they considered as the most important, but to classify such criteria from the least to the most important. By the end of the survey, and based on the 286 responses that were received, the results were that once again both sense consistency and logical cohesion were considered the most important criteria in comparison to voice quality and accent. In 2008, Grabich suggested that the concept of quality is a social construction, and because of this, all the evaluation and descriptions regarding quality are completely subjective, because they depend on the time, culture, and context. As a result, she stated that quality is something one decides to attribute to something and is not inherent of interpreting. 3 different dimensions were established by Grabich. The first one is quality as exception, in which quality is seen as something that only the most highly trained professionals can attain, because the quality standards are too high. The second one is quality as perfection, in which the quality of interpreting is evaluated according to the number of errors and mistakes an interpreter makes, which are expected to be near zero. This notion is especially present in the formation of new interpreters. Lastly, the third one is quality as fitness for purpose, in which quality is defined depending on how pleased the client is with the interpreter's work. As a way to delve more into the whole issue of quality, a new survey was made in order to determine if there are differences or similarities between the AIIC and the VKD regarding quality criteria. This research takes both Buehler and Chiaro and Nocella as models to base the focus and procedure of this survey in order to compare both the national view and the international view on quality criteria, as well as to connect these criteria to a wide range of contexts and situations. Methods. As part of the project Quality in Simultaneous Interpreting, the Center for Translation Studies of the University of Vienna also did, between 2008 and 2009, 2 surveys for members of the AIIC and the VKD, except for the ones that were members of the 2 organizations. In order to accomplish its objective, the surveys followed an established methodology that consisted of 41 items that were divided in 3 sections. Part A, that consisted of socio-demographic information such as age, gender, experience, etc. Part B, that consisted of a replica of Buehler's research, and the participants were required to listen to a 1-minute-long audio. Part C, that was the longest part of the survey and focused entirely on the role of the interpreter. Results. Out of all the 704 participants, the following results were obtained. Regarding gender, 76% and 24% of the 704 members of the AIIC were female and male respectively, while 86% and 40% of the 107 BKD members that answered were female and male respectively. In relation to how many of them were working as freelance interpreters, 89% of AIIC members were currently working on the freelance market, while 96% of BKD members were working as freelance as well. Regarding age of AIIC members, the maximum age was 87 years old, and the minimum age was 30 years old, with an average of 52 years old. In the case of the VKD, the maximum age was 72 years old and the minimum age was 24 years old, with an average of 40 years old. In terms of education, 79% of AIIC members stated that they had a university degree in translation or interpreting, and 60% stated that they had another degree from another field. In comparison, 92.5% of BKD members had a university degree in translation or interpreting, and 23% stated that they had another degree from another field. In relation to work experience as conference interpreters, the average was 24%, with a minimum of 4 years and a maximum of 57 years in the case of AIIC members, while the VKD has an average of 12 years with a minimum of 1 year and a maximum of 45 years. Regarding languages, the 3 most common languages worked in the AIIC are French, English, and German. In contrast, the 3 most common languages worked in the VKD are German, French, and Italian. In terms of area of work, 42% of AIIC members have worked in the private sector, 33% have worked for other institutions, and 25% have worked for both. Meanwhile, out of all the VKD members, 89% have worked in the private sector, 4% for institutions, and 7.5% for both. Regarding type of interpretation, 79% of AIIC members have done simultaneous interpreting, and 76% of VKD members have done it too. However, in both cases, they have rarely worked with consecutive interpreting. This survey confirmed that interpreters attributed more importance to content-related criteria, such as sense consistency and logical cohesion, much more than delivery-related criteria, especially sense consistency, which was the undisputed winner, just like in Buehler and Chiaro and Nocella surveys. Some participants even stated that the criteria of sense consistency should be considered a professional norm, since it's what voted repeatedly as the most important criteria in the survey. Also, it's important to point out that the AIIC values delivery-related criteria much more than the BKD. In conclusion, both associations believe that the concept of quality is indeed an elusive idea that depends highly on the type of meeting and context, but only in relation to delivery aspects such as performance and voice quality.